Hello, my name is Alan Feltz, and I wanted to welcome you to today's webinar on developing high-performance teams within your organization. This is one of the skills taught through our 360 high-performance leadership mastermind groups. Our presenter today is Jeff Morris, president of Mosconi Group. Jeff is a serial entrepreneur and has worked for a variety of companies and not-for-profit organizations to help build internal employee productivity, change behaviors, and achieve measurable results for organizations interested in creating a sustainable, customer-focused organization. He is currently working on his latest book, Storytelling: How to Close More Sales in a World Adverse to Sales. Take it away, Jeff. Jeff, are you with us? Oops. We may be having some technical difficulties here. Jeff, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
There we are. Yep, we can hear you now. Go ahead and take it away.
Sorry about that. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us online today. It's great to see so many of you. We appreciate you taking the time to sit in. We're scheduled for an hour, but as usual, we won't use all of it. So also, please feel free to use the messaging function on your screen to ask questions along the way. We'll address those at the end. But first, let's take a look at our agenda for today. First, we're going to talk about why efficiently functioning teams are important. Then we're going to look at how high-performance teams differ from traditional work groups most companies currently rely on. We'll talk about the 5 stages of high-performance teams, how you, as a leader, can foster these types of high-performance teams. And, you know, at the end, we'll talk a little bit about what success looks like. How do you know that your teams are functioning at high levels? And if we have any time left, I'll share just kind of one of the many processes we use to create more efficient meetings for your teams, which tend to be something that a lot of organizations will struggle with overall. So first of all, why would this be important to your organization? The American Psychological Association recently did a poll where they asked employees across the country about their productivity. So these are the answers that employees give about their own job behavior. So, you know, I'll just set this caveat. If you were asked to rate yourself on how productive you were in your job, I'm guessing all of us would be much more ambitious in our answer than we were in maybe our actual productivity. So I'm guessing these numbers may skew a little low, but less than 1 in 4 workers say that they work to their full potential. 1/2 say that they work only hard enough to hold onto their jobs. So that's only half of the current workforce. 3 in 4 say that they could be significantly more productive. 74% of Americans identified work as the main cause of their stress overall. 55% of these employees also admit that their job performance is not what it could be. And overall, 48% of employees recognize productivity problems, but really only 5% are doing anything to address them. So what have we seen with our clients? We teach these tactics more in depth directly to your company or through our mastermind groups. So we've actually had the opportunity to see this come to life. The major reason, obviously, companies decide to develop team efficiency and effectiveness is really to improve productivity and quality, right? For example, one manufacturing client that we have leveraged high-performance teams as a key component of their kind of total quality management programs to ensure quality while maintaining a low-cost approach to manufacturing overall. However, most of our clients also use it to really improve the quality of work life for their employees. This is a key component in our overall program for creating or improving customer experience and creating, you know, these productive, engaged employees that really are the key to overall customer loyalty. As a result of these teamwork changes, we've seen reduced absenteeism, turnover. We've increased innovation, improved organizational adaptability and flexibility. Effective implementation really of teams has really also improved office politics by improving communication and trust that are so vital among team members. For example, an effective team is generally one which members are empowered to make decisions about how to get work done. Giving team members authority and control over work processes really reduces the amount of external control and increases their sense of ownership and accountability for the work being done. This helps to create a more satisfying and rewarding work environment overall. So like I said, that satisfying and rewarding work environment also helps to lower absenteeism and turnover. High-performance teams are particularly effective in this area. Follow-up interviews with one of our clients' employees, membership in a work team gives them a sense of belonging, interaction with others on a regular basis, and really a recognition of achievement. All of these help to eliminate a sense of isolation within the organization. These team members identify with and really feel pride in the work that they're doing and come to rely on one another, being there for each other. We do have a client that evaluates employees really based on their contribution to their team's efforts. The employees feel they can control this review of their progress, and being in control kind of gives them that additional feeling of well-being. Another one of our clients utilizes a team concept to create innovation. This is a trend of a lot of companies in the country tend to talk about innovation, but really kind of lack the tools to make that happen. Our client is a multinational company really structured around the concept of small plants. There's really no more than 250 employees in each plant where everyone kind of works in teams. But everyone is allowed to experiment with the products, develop new uses for them. The result is this company has this just kind of continuous stream of patent applications and has been successful in developing new products in areas as diverse as clothing, surgical implements, and even coating for industrial use. But there's also historic evidence. During the 1980s, Ford was a little bit later than when this picture was taken, but during the 1980s, Ford was able to reduce its automobile design cycle by implementing what they called team tourists. Through the early involvement of employees from planning, designing, engineering, manufacturing, the company was able to eliminate some of those bottlenecks that had delayed the design process overall. The involvement of suppliers and assembly workers helped to decrease the number of parts involved, and that lowered costs. They reduced the time from design to manufacturing overall, which helps Ford to be more responsive to market changes and increase its market shares in the 80s and 90s. And nowadays, of course, Ford has come a long way as one of the largest car manufacturers, both in and outside the U.S. But the marketplace has really changed with the information age, led by the internet, of course. This has led to fundamental shifts in the way you have to compete as a business. It's already been a trend demonstrating that market share growth is a result of applying non-traditional forms of product delivery, requiring higher levels of collaboration within and among your project teams. But of course, as anything we undertake as we improve our business, building teams is easy to talk about. It's a little bit more difficult to accomplish. Calling a group of assembled people a team doesn't really make them one. Telling employees they need to collaborate doesn't really translate into that collaboration. Teams just don't happen naturally. In addition, teams are technically volunteer assemblies, right? We can't force anyone to cooperate. We can't mandate teamwork. A high level of cooperation is a product of their choices. Choices made by one person at a time for reasons that are really often unique to the individual. But by understanding the team dynamics, you can kind of design teams and implement a single team model that can still adapt to your organizational needs and challenges as you move along. This is why you've seen over the past 15 to 20 years organizations with consistent results and growth like Procter & Gamble, GE, Southwest Airlines. They've really made team development as part of their corporate culture versus just a one-off training exercise. By investing in developing in team skills and attitudes and establishing this type of culture, these companies have documented really startling gains in productivity, increased levels of quality, reduced costs, and a faster time to market. So we thought if large corporations can do it, imagine how effective it could be in smaller organizations as well. That's one of the reasons that we have these mastermind groups, so that really any size organization can develop the type of team culture that drives that same growth that larger companies have seen. But it's important to note before we move any further that high performance teams are not for everyone. We've met with organizations that simply just cannot give up control to their employees. There's a lack of trust between management and employees, or certain key employees are seen as exempt from participating in this new way. While we can teach organizations how to overcome these obstacles, unless the management commitment is there, it will end in failure. We can usually tell you in our initial analysis whether or not this can work for your organization, but involving employees and teams really helps the organization remain open to change and new ideas, as long as the teams are seen as a means of improving the organization's ability to kind of meet competitive challenges. But there are attitudes that really kind of have to be adopted by your organization to get those consistent results that we see from those top companies, those big corporations, right? If you don't form teams, you don't form teams, you build them. They have to be. It's an ongoing process. It's not just a one-time event. Really, just in time is the best time for training and developing a team. It's not something that's that we're going to wait until this happens or we're going to wait until that happens. Anytime really is time to move forward on this. Development must be a felt, it must be a felt need of the overall team. And an organization must use the work of the team to actually build the team. There really are no shortcuts to the effectiveness. And then overall willingness really precedes skill when it comes to collaboration. And we'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute. But so what does a high performance team look like? High performance teams really share certain characteristics. They have a shared mission, they have autonomy and authority, an interdependence and shared leadership. They have broadly defined jobs instead of specialized jobs. They have meaningful participation in decisions overall, and overall, higher performance and a higher level of accountability, placing those metrics and tracking them so that we know that things are working and moving forward. This really differs from a traditional work group. Traditional work groups coordinate from above with constant supervision, while high performance teams enable a group to become self-governing, only occasionally needing your guidance and the feedback. So imagine as a leader how much time that frees up for you to do other leadership tasks. But traditional work groups are organized around employee functions, which means that employees have very specialized tasks. Often this leads to that's not my job mentality, whereas high performance teams are really organized around core processes and are comprised of employees who possess multiple skills. So their actions result in actual process development overall. Supervisors have to take a heavy hand in the management of traditional work groups, taking you and your leadership team away from other tasks and kind of diminishing the overall efficiency of the rest of your workforce. Whereas, high performance teams have a shared leadership among the members of the team, needing kind of that, less heavy-handed supervision. Traditional work groups kind of labor under rules, set by management, overall rules, instead of the overall principles of the organization, like a high performance team does, the values of the organization. And then really there are these are the two most important differentiators, where traditional work groups really refer their decisions up to management and wait for approvals and those types of things. High performance teams have the autonomy to implement the changes immediately, where they count, at that point of action to create those immediate efficiencies. And then finally, overall, this creates a feeling of partnership and engagement with your company. It gives them a feeling of that, importance of participation rather than just being a tool of management overall. So how do we do this? How do we put together high performance teams? It comes, when it comes to forming these teams, you won't be successful right off the bat, but eventually you will become successful at this, and it'll spread throughout your culture. So, a lot of times when we work with our clients, we start with one team, and we build that as a model, and then once we've seen success with that one team, we actually use the members of that team then to begin to disseminate the overall team attitude throughout the culture of the organization. So, and we talked about this just a minute, but it starts with the right people, right? We truly believe that every individual in your organization can become a valued and productive member of the team. However, this does take learning some new skills around conflict management, emotional intelligence, communication, those kinds of things. We do train teams in these skills, but if you wanted to start this today or tomorrow in your organization, we really encourage you to look for the right attitude as it exists currently. Not necessarily the right skills, but an aptitude for those right skills or how to learn those right skills. Because bad attitudes really can ruin teams before they get started. So, watch for those types of things. You don't want to select people who expect perfection from day one. If they respond to imperfection by complaining or quitting, they're really not for your team as you kind of build your first attempt at this. They can't grow and improve. Don't add people who hate it when others do well. You'll often hear these people tearing others down, media figures, leadership, even their coworkers. And then, of course, a part of this, don't add people who gossip. This becomes really a poison for your team. Don't add people who complain about others while excusing themselves. We've all worked with these folks in the past. And then, finally, don't add people who continuously explain why things can't be done. We do a lot of sales training, with groups around the country, and the sales training, this tends to be one of the things that is a constant with sales forces, is this constant explanation about why things cannot be done. These are the can't do rather than can do people, and you hear those words a lot. We can't do that because, and there's usually some explanation. So let's say you have the folks in place who have the right attitude. So then it comes to not necessarily the skills they possess, but an aptitude for learning the skills it takes to become a high-performance team. And so, train them in, teamwork, teaching people how to work together. If you expect them to work together, you really kind of have to teach them to work together. You think it was something that we learned in kindergarten, like the famous book says, but that's not necessarily true. Teach them in decision-making, problem-solving, leadership skills, and management. There's a little bit of, not only personal management, but management of others in the team, or time management overall. We believe that really consistent performance really requires consistent learning, not necessarily from a formal training, but also consistent learning from their coworkers and other members of the team. So next, it's time to kind of put the people in the right seats and build that overall structure, right? Traditional work groups get together from time to time. They go over progress. They address issues, but really their progress tends to stagnate over a short period of time. That's because there's really no clear process. Even artists have a process when they create art. Most people don't think of it that way. They think that an artist will sit in front of a canvas or in front of a white piece of paper waiting for inspiration to hit. But really, successful art is the product of determined intentionality. So they do have a process to their approach. Even if it's an individualized, internalized process, they do have a process. So there is a process to building successful teams. There's step one, orient both individuals and the team. So there's an orientation type of process. We're going to talk about this in here in a minute, but define the team purpose. This ensures clarity of task and really an alignment overall. Develop a mission. and the team processes and skills to then deliver on that mission overall. Build solid team relationships. There are various tactics that can be used to do that, and then really ensure ongoing evaluation and development by monitoring progress and performance and making those adjustments as you go along. So just real briefly, I'm going to review the 5 stages of team. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. It's just a very quick definition. It's just a review so you can kind of understand the series of stages that any team goes through from their formation to the completion of their task. So this is, the reason I'm going through this is so then we can talk about how you can influence and maximize the development of a team and their final outcomes overall. A guy named Bruce Tuckman first proposed first it was 4 stages of high performance teams, and then later revised the list to include the 5th stage, adjourning. But during the forming stage, the team discusses its purpose. They define and assign tasks. They establish timelines. They really begin forming personal relationships overall. The often contentious storming stage. This is kind of the time when team members really kind of clarify their goals and the strategy for achieving them. But it's also a time of turmoil, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. The norming stage is really when a team establishes its values for how individuals will interact and collaborate. And then, of course, we get to the performing stage. This is when really the team members have become high performance or productive relationships. They're able to communicate and coordinate effectively and efficiently. And then finally, there's the adjourning of the team. This is where you kind of analyze and record processes, best practices, and now, best of all, you have the successful members of this team that can form new teams for new initiatives and train incoming employees in this important new part of your culture. Again, this is kind of they move through the stages in sequence. Really, the phases may overlap or they may be repeated. There may be instances where members of the team, it's not working out, and the team has to reform and go back to that forming stage. But I mentioned the stage, called storming, and I said that it was contentious. At that stage, if we look at the team, we really think that things are falling apart because the team's no longer getting along like they used to. They're disagreeing on both important and petty issues. There's role confusion. There's boundary definition issues. Working within the company's political hierarchy kind of contribute to that conflict and frustration in this phase. Cliques are forming within the team as kind of members maneuver for control. Team members begin to question the usefulness of other teammates as well as their allegiance to the team leader. As pressure begins to mount to deliver, the team really kind of is embroiled in conflict and confusion. But here's what's interesting. What seems to be the team falling apart and getting worse is actually the team getting stronger. When they're forming, they weren't really a team at all. It's just kind of a faux team going through the motions, right? As each team member begins to share his or her perspective and unique contribution, a collision occurs, a collision of experiences and preferences. As these conflicts emerge, the team struggles, not only with the conflict, but how to resolve that conflict. At this point in the traditional team, by the way, the designated leader, or sometimes it's you if you're the boss, basically, would step in and straighten everything and everybody out, right? These are the rules, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. But in a high-performance team, it's important that the leadership is shared. So no one person really has the power to control the whole team. It seems kind of counterintuitive, but it works well. So this storming behavior overall may seem like backsliding, but it's actually progress. Members are sharing their opinions at the stage. They're disagreeing, but most importantly, they're caring about the outcome. That's why there's so much conflict at this point. But the problem with storming arises when teams and groups can't figure out how to get out of storming. As tensions mount and cliques form, and the attendance will start to drop, and participation will start to waver. People will start to have meetings that they need to attend to or sales calls they have to go on to rather than making the team meeting. The meetings are boring because people don't want to speak up or they get attacked for their opinions and ideas. The team loses commitment and its common goal. Teammates are rude sometimes and inconsiderate toward each other. And then they kind of collect and store those resentments or share them in what behavior is called a Karpman drama triangle, which basically means that they kind of start to form these triangles where they're feeding off of each other's negative energy. So when you're in the storming stage, it's actually impossible to address these issues. It has to be done in the forming stage when everyone is getting along. That's why our process is focused on building rapport through the forming phase. In this phase, no one wants to raise conflict and threaten authority, right? We're getting to know each other. Often it feels like maybe nothing is accomplished in this phase, but it's vital to kind of recognize this need for team rapport, learning interesting facts or personal information to uncover common bonds. A lot of times we have, our clients have the teams, they go to coffee or they go to lunch, they spend time with each other. Project schedules and status reports kind of help manage projects, but relationships really deliver the results. But kind of by building rapport, you really have that strong common denominator. So here's an example, really, of a client's production team. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this, about how they kind of followed an effective process. In forming, the team developed a team charter, right, which outlined the goals, the approach to achieving those goals, the roles and responsibilities of the members, the authority level of the team, and everything that they really considered negotiable or non-negotiable. And they really laid the rules out on the table. They developed they had a process observer role, which tended to rotate among the group. And this person was responsible for keeping everyone on task and making sure that there isn't the slip sliding back and forth between the storming and norming phases. And they developed this kind of overall, how are we going to resolve conflict? We had provided an extended version of the training that we're talking about right now, so the entire team really had an understanding of the difference between high performance team and dysfunctional one. So we weren't just throwing them in there and going, oh yeah, this is like an experiment that we're going to watch from behind a two-way glass, right? So like I said, they had identified its ground rules for acceptable and unacceptable behaviors. They had implemented that process observer, and then really for the first meeting, the team was receiving feedback from peers about the good things that members were doing and those behaviors that needed to change overall. Next, we made sure that the team had gone through a recognition of conflict resolution. We did a training, but it helped members to accept conflict really as healthy and recognize those phases in conflict, their own conflict resolution style, and how to express disagreement in a constructive manner overall. Utilizing what many management advisors like us call the risk pause approach. And we're actually going to talk a little bit more about that in our next webinar about conflict resolution. But we completed all the training and charter development while the team was forming. We did all this while they were forming. So as expected, members kind of, expressed frustration saying, hey, we get along great, we love each other, why do we need all this stuff? Well, at that stage, in the forming stage, none of it is needed, but it is desperately needed in the storming stage. And sure enough, it didn't take long for that team to hit that storming stage. It really began when one person was rotated in as the team leader and started to get bossy, right? Immediately the team split with them trying to support this person in his transition, while really others forcefully, resented his approach and started to undermine his leadership by that triangling that I talked about with people within and also outside of the team. It didn't take long for the team member to approach the company leader saying, you need to do something about Steve because he's got everyone on the team upset. It isn't working with him in that role. But thanks to all the work that we had done in the forming stage, leadership was able to say, really, have you or anyone on the team talked to him one-on-one? Without that protocol in place, the team member would have expected the manager to fix the problem, and the manager would have expected the team to fix the problem. So really, there would have been no spelled out, agreed upon approach. And by the way, the new team leader didn't get better after a one-on-one and didn't even get better on two-on-one was actually done several times. And even they moved to what they called a team on-one, where the whole team talked to him. But he didn't improve, and it was really because he had no desire to be a team player. But without that plan in place, he really could have held the team hostage in storming for a long time with no resolution. Instead, they reformed the team with a new member, and it worked out great. So moving to that next stage from storming to norming really requires a team to make an active choice to be a team. I can tell you teams flip-flop back and forth, especially in the storming and norming phases, as they struggle with kind of this commitment to teaming. But if they know how to manage it effectively, most will make the transition far quicker than a team that really struggles every time it returns to storming. Any team, has to get through this storming part as part of their normal development. But if they're prepared and work through the plan in advance, we find the storming to be an important growth point. So with those growing pains behind them, we now consider this team a high-performing team. It wasn't easy getting there, but it happened. They worked effectively as a group, supporting each other, relying on the group as a whole to make decisions. They could brainstorm effectively. When there was conflict, such as a disagreement, the group was able to work it out. And really, it just came down to the management leader could check in, praise them for their hard work and their progress, and then facilitate information to and from that team to the executive team for the company in case there was additional support needed. So as managers and coaches, you have the opportunity to prepare your teams for this stage, even when, and even coach them through it with really two important points. As a coach, you have to tell your teams you believe in storming and that it's normal, an important step in teaming, and that they'll eventually emerge stronger and more committed. But more importantly, hold the team members accountable for following the rules and protocols that they set up in the beginning. Sometimes it's just easier to step in and take over for them, but it ends up not being the type of thing that empowers them to make that change that's needed. So what are some other things that you can do as a leader in the development of these teams? You can provide at least 4 big benefits when coaching a project and work teams. You can establish focus for them and encourage speed. At the beginning, the presence of a coach, like you, can really help your teams accelerate through the forming and storming phases by ensuring clarity of and focus on the purpose of that team. While there's always kind of some natural and healthy storming around the definition of the project and the design of the roles and accountabilities, a team coach can help minimize the flailing, if you will, and ensure prompt and safe passage through that fuzzy front end of any new initiative. Getting the startup right sets the tone for a much-needed collaboration and coordination within the subsequent phases as we move through them. However, it's really important they still allow the team to create the protocols for handling conflict and the rules of behavior, or you'll find yourself stepping in far too often down the road and spending too much time. Monitoring engagement, teams are best when every member of the group is fully engaged. Unfortunately, that's not human nature. There always seems to be one or even a few members who are distracted or uninvolved or afraid to get involved. High performance is really only achieved when every team member is actively engaged in participating. And a team coach is really invaluable to ensuring that takes place. However, don't strangle socializing either, especially in the forming stage. It's an important part of establishing rapport overall. You can frame the communication. While everyone shows up kind of knowing how to talk, teams really need to learn how to communicate, right? Emotions, opinions, agendas, power, all manner of biases serve to fight against the effective communication in groups. Team coaches help kind of parse out those, the search and focus on the material issue, the mission, the scope, the facts, the framing, the decision making, the execution. It becomes a great role for the coach overall. And then, of course, you can help the team navigate potential pitfalls. We all know that people working in groups are potentially prone to various traps, like groupthink or escalation of commitments, Abilene paradox, reliance on wrong information or data, really all of that can threaten the clear decision-making and project outcomes. An effective coach listens and watches for signs of emerging pitfalls to kind of help their teams navigate around them. So the careful use of questioning and polite but firm challenging of assumptions, and again, framing those issues. So what does success look like? There are various indicators of whether a team's working effectively together as a group, and once we kind of talk about them, they make complete sense. But you know, how to know it's working? You know, is there clear communication among all members? Is there regular brainstorming sessions with all members participating? Regular team meetings are effective and inclusive of everyone? Is there a commitment to the project and other team members? Is problem solving done by the group? Is there consensus among team members? Not necessarily agreement, just consensus. Is there a timely handoff from team members to others to ensure that the project keeps moving in the right direction? Is there positive supportive work relationship among team members? Teams that are not working effectively will kind of show a different set of characteristics. You know, the team leader will not really need to be actively involved in high performance teams. Sooner or later, the team leader addresses issues and kind of helps move the team into a more effective way of working together. And it's more likely the projects are going to end successfully. But what you see among teams that aren't working really are a lack of communication among team members. There's no clear roles or responsibilities for these team members. Team members tend to throw work over the wall to other team members with really kind of a lack of concern for timelines or work quality. They just go, hey, that's your problem. Team members work alone, rarely sharing information and offering assistance, which is another key indicator that it's not working. Team members blame each other for what's going wrong. No one really accepts responsibility. They don't support others on the team, and they're really frequently absent, causing more slippage in timeline and additional work for their team members as they try to pick up the slack. So those are kind of some things to look for to determine that it's working or not working. I'm just going to take a couple minutes here and just kind of give you a meeting efficiency tip. So this is something you can take home and use, right? So how many of you have been in a meeting where you wish that you had that Darth Vader power to kind of choke off the conversation? I hope I'm not nerdifying myself too much, but where we just kind of sit there in a meeting with our fingers and kind of pretend like we're choking off that conversation. It happens, once a week at least, right? It's because we try to accomplish too much when we have the group together. We believe that really there are only three types of meetings. The first one is to solve a problem. The second one is to communicate information, and the third one is to brainstorm. And they all have different types of agendas and ways to keep focused and productive. But I wanted to leave you with one that you can use immediately. This is a great one for teams because it's a problem-solving agenda. We found that this creates productive meetings rather than wasted time. By the way, you can download a sample agenda right now from your GoToWebinar window, or you can email me later for a copy. I'll send you one. But if you have any questions about how it works, don't hesitate to email me with those questions, or we can walk through it offline or whatever. So while each of the different types of meetings have their unique attributes and challenges, every meeting really should have similar steps, right? To have a specific and single-minded goal. If there's more than one goal, you really should have more than one meeting. To define the objective criteria, the criteria that we're going to use to make the decision, right? What does success look like? Agree to this before any other conversation happens. And then the next stage of this agenda is to share perspectives. Ask for everyone's perspective, but make sure the conversation stay focused on the goal. This is where your team moderator kind of comes in. The next section of the agenda is to review the options. So there are meetings for generating ideas and meetings for making decisions. Don't try to do both in one meeting. But in the option review, as you go around the room and you go through the options, write the options on the wall so that everybody has them and they all agree to them, right? That yes, that's exactly what I meant by that option. And then, of course, one of the last stages is to reach consensus, not agreement, but consensus based on the criteria that we set in step number 2. It's based on which of these things is going to best fit our decision criteria. And then, of course, action. This is key. A lot of meetings end and nobody really knows what's next or who's responsible for it. So it's key that we identify what the steps that need to be taken and then who's going to be in charge of those steps. And then the last thing we like to do is review the meeting, just very quickly. Was the meeting effective? Do we need to change this in the future? Those kinds of things. So hopefully that's helpful, something you can take. And again, you can download that from the GoToWebinar. That's what I have for today. Hey, Alan, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we've got a few here.
Okay.
The first one here, you mentioned conflict resolution protocol for teams. What does that look like?
So, we encourage teams to draft its conflict resolution protocol, kind of outlining how each member should approach conflict when it occurs. Most teams accept and kind of support the premise that the individual really should go. I mean, this makes sense, right? The individual should go directly to the other individual if he or she has a conflict, right? That's step 1. Step 2 is to go to do the one-on-one again, or to do a two-on-one. With really the second person is just validating that an attempt was made. And then the third step is really, most commonly to address the conflict as a team. Again, these are all going to be individual to the team, but these are the ones that we often encourage. Really only in extreme cases is it elevated to leadership and asking them to make a decision. But it's important that the team understands through the adoption of their conflict resolution protocol that every member will take an active role in solving the problem.
Okay. Thank you. We have a second question here. Looks like it's coming from Matt. He said, you mentioned an important rule for leaders is to create an alignment and a common purpose for the team. Do you have tips for doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Development of alignment really is a process. It would be, it'd be tough to cover everything in this time frame, but there are kind of 5 key criteria that's essential for team alignment that we can help you focus on. But first of all, it has to be clear. Everyone has to be able to see it. The benefits of this team effort must be understood by everyone. That's why we always encourage companies to really define the difference of a high-performance team versus just a traditional work group, so that everybody is on the same page, right? It has to be relevant. Everyone has to want it. The team purpose and goals really align with my individual goals and interests as a member of the team. It has to be significant, so it's worth it, right? Team objectives are of a sufficient magnitude really to make the work worth the effort overall. And then it has to be achievable. They have to believe the team purpose is realistic and attainable. And then finally, there's got to be a sense of urgency, a sense of timeliness that drives behavior. And like I said, how to achieve each of these is really kind of covered more in depth in our mastermind groups, or even when we're engaged directly with companies.
Cool. This one comes from Amanda. She asks, what makes a good team leader?
We believe that there are really kind of 5 key qualities that I'm kind of speaking in 5s, aren't I? I like to keep them simple, but we believe there are 5 key qualities that make up the mindset of effective team leaders. And again, these are, as I kind of go through these, you'll think, okay, well, these are kind of the things that I look for in my friends too, or in people that I enjoy working with.
Yeah.
But the first one, they appreciate the collective intelligence of the team. So, each person is great, but the collective intelligence is so much more powerful. And so as a result of that, they believe in the power of diversity among team members. if you have everyone from the same department or you have everyone that does the same skill sets, you don't get as many differing visions of what could be. They see team leadership as a role by which to kind of serve the team, not as a position to be served. In other words, they're not, they're not one of those leaders that none of us really care to work with, right? They see power as something to be released and shared rather than something to hold and control and, I'm in charge here. And then they really understand the purpose, right? Teams are for achieving a team purpose. And so, those are things that we kind of see that work well among good team leaders.
Great. Well, hopefully everyone picked up some tips they can apply. I want to encourage everyone, don't miss our next webinar called Turning Conflict into Creativity on December 10th at 2 p.m. This webinar will show how leaders like you, how you can actually leverage conflicts within your organization to create more efficient business processes that give you a competitive advantage. This webinar will introduce you to how to turn differences into opportunities, understanding the whys of conflict, tips for handling conflict, defining 5 different conflict management styles, and enhancing your own conflict management style. Hopefully you'll join us, and you can sign up on mosconigroup.com.
And we also get, interest in the mastermind groups. We mentioned that, and so sometimes we get questions. The mastermind group, just so you know, is a group of peers. They get together once a month, and it's usually a half-day type of meeting, and there's a learning component, and then there's a sharing component, sharing best practices component. And, we address different topics. For example, our upcoming one that starts in January is, you can see some of the topics that we'll be talking about: leading with vision, resolving conflict, emotional intelligence, effective communication. And then not only do you learn, but you also get to share best practices with other people who are in positions similar to yours in other types of companies. So we just wanted to, feel free to go on mosconigroup.com for more information.